In today's video, we are going to explore the mind-bending question which touches Buddhist themes seen throughout Cyberpunk and mind theory. What if V had just let go and let Johnny Silverhand completely take over? It's a concept that touches the narrative of merging consciousnesses and also echoes some profound ideas of Buddhist philosophy, specifically the nature of the self as being ever-changing and constantly in flux. We'll delve into how this concept plays out in the game, the subtle hints that suggest a fluid transition between V and Johnny, and how embracing the process might align with the Buddhist idea of letting go to attachment to self. I'm always happy to hear from you, so if you like exploring philosophical concepts like these, give the video a thumbs up when earned and comment your thoughts. Now, let's get into it. In Cyberpunk, V is faced with an almost impossible choice as they struggle with the relic chip embedded in their brain, a chip that houses the consciousness of the rocker boy Johnny Silverhand. The struggle is existential, and throughout the game the lines between V and Johnny begin to blur, raising a question of the very nature of identity and self. In Buddhist philosophy, the concept of anatta or no self suggests that the self is not a fixed immutable entity. Instead, it is an ever-changing composed of shifting processes, experiences and thoughts. In many ways, the journey of V and Johnny mirrors this idea, as the boundaries of their identities becomes increasingly porous over time. Think about how you yourself have changed. Many of the cells in your body are not the same as they were 10 years ago. Your personality is not the same. The way you look is not the same as you were a child, and yet we would classify you to be you. Throughout, we see that V is wrestling with the changes brought about by Johnny's influence. There are moments when V wonders aloud what it would be like to let Johnny take over entirely, whether they would forget who they are, or if they would become some kind of amalgamation of V and Johnny's consciousness.
I'm afraid of becoming someone else, forgetting who I am.
You're already becoming someone else, every second of every day.
Still, I feel a connection between who I was and who I'm turning into.
What you really fear is becoming someone you don't recognize in the least.
When Johnny himself points out that V is becoming more like him, V responds that the process must work both ways. This acknowledgement that Johnny is also changing due to their shared experiences hints at a merging of psyches rather than one completely erasing the other.
You're starting to remind me of me, 50 years back. Minus the charisma. An impressive cop. Maybe we can just get along.
Could be something to that, I suppose. What happened to us, it must have had some effect.
You're more like me than you think. You'll see.
But it goes both ways. Maybe you're becoming more like me.
Nah, no way.
Johnny's demeanor shifts throughout the story. He becomes less antagonistic, more empathetic, and begins to reflect on his past actions with a degree of introspection and humility which was not evident at the start. These changes could be attributed to character development, but they also serve as a subtle indication of the transformation happening within both V and Johnny as they coexist. Characters like Alt Cunningham, who have transcended human form to become an AI, as well as Rogue, who was known to Johnny for decades, also acknowledge these changes, suggesting that something fundamental is happening to both of them. From the Buddhist perspective, the self is an illusion, and the attachment to a fixed idea of who we are is a source of suffering. The struggle between V and Johnny can be seen as an allegory for this attachment. V is holding on to their sense of self, desperately trying to remain who they were before the relic. But if we take the Buddhist perspective, perhaps the best course of action would have been for V to simply let go, to accept the merging with Johnny and embrace the change without fear. Imagine if V decided not to fight it, if they allowed Johnny to fully take over. Would that be the death of V, or would it be the birth of something new? According to the teachings of Buddhism, the idea that V as a fixed identity is already an illusion. They are a collection of memories, emotions and experiences constantly changing with each moment. Johnny too is not the same person he once was. He's already evolved from his past self, and his interaction with V is reshaping him further still. Also, Johnny is really just an illusion. He is a copy made from an imperfect estimation of the real Silverhand. In one poignant conversation, Johnny tells V that they are becoming alike, and V observes that Johnny must be experiencing the same. This echoes the Buddhist idea of dependent origination. This is the notion that all things arise in dependence upon other factors, and nothing exists in isolation. The merging of V and Johnny suggests that identity is relational, fluid and constantly influenced by people and the experiences around us. By resisting the merge, V is clinging on to the idea of distinct self, and this clinging is what ultimately leads to their suffering. The more V fights against Johnny's presence, the more their physical condition deteriorates, and their sense of who they are becomes more fragmented. If V had chosen to relinquish control, they might have found a kind of liberation, freedom from the struggle to maintain a fixed identity. This could have led to a new being, one that embodies aspects of both V and Johnny, but who is neither entirely one or the other. There are moments that hint to this possibility of a more seamless transition between V and Johnny. Alt speaks of how the consciousness on the chip, Johnny, is like a recording, but with the capacity to evolve, to change. She also implies that what makes Johnny who he is can shift and adapt, particularly through this interaction with V. When V asks Alt about the process of transferring consciousness, she speaks in a way that suggests that the outcome is not as simple as one consciousness replacing the other. Instead, it is more akin to a blending and transformation where neither party remains exactly the same. This uncertainty is what terrifies V, losing themselves and becoming something unrecognizable, but is also what makes this journey so profound. If V could embrace this transformation, they might find that there is no clear line between V and Johnny anymore, but rather a new existence that transcends both. Rogue, who knew Johnny in his original life, also comments on the changes she sees in him. She notices how he is different, more reflective, less impulsive, and even questions whether the Johnny she once knew would have made the same choices he is making now. This suggests that the merging of V and Johnny is already affecting who Johnny is, even as V is becoming more like him. It's a reminder that identity is not static, and the self is a fluid construct shaped by our experiences and relationships. In Buddhism, the path to liberation involves letting go of attachments, including the attachment to the self. If V had chosen to accept the merging process fully, if they had let Johnny take over without resistance, perhaps they would have experienced a kind of liberation. The fear of losing oneself is rooted in the belief that there is something permanent to lose, but the teachings of Anatta tells us that there is no fixed self to cling to. Johnny himself evolves throughout the story, becoming less of a rebel without a cause and more of a person who cares about V and their shared journey. This evolution suggests that the merging process isn't just about one consciousness overtaking the other. It's about growth, adaptation and the creation of something entirely new. In the end, the question isn't whether V would still be V if they let Johnny take over, it's whether that the distinction even matters. Perhaps the true answer lies in letting go of the need for distinction altogether. So, what if V had chosen to do nothing and let Johnny take over? Maybe it wouldn't have been death or an end, but rather a transformation, an evolution of both V and Johnny into something new. The idea of a fixed, unchanging self is an illusion, and clinging on only leads to suffering. By embracing the ever-changing nature of identity, V might have found a kind of freedom, a new path that transcends the limitations of either consciousness alone. In the end, this offers us a glimpse into the fluidity of identity and the potential liberation that comes from letting go. It's a powerful reminder that the self is not something to be preserved at all costs. It's something that evolves, transforms and ultimately dissolves into something greater. If you enjoyed this exploration of V and Johnny and the nature of self, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more deep dives into the philosophical side of gaming. Until next time, Tunes, remember, the only constant is change.